Hello again. So this is a little bit longer video I made about our IEEE software paper on API strategies. So this is a joint work by 4 different authors. So those 4 authors are me, Juho Lindman, then there's Jennifer Horkoff, Imed Hammouda, and Knauss. And we are both somehow affiliated with the Software Center, which is an industry academic collaboration located in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering at the Chalmers University of Technology and the University of Gothenburg, both based in Gothenburg, Sweden. And what is Software Center? So the logic is that is an industry academia collaboration platform with the aim to increase the competitiveness of the Nordic software engineering community. And this paper is an outcome of one of the projects around the Software Center. So that's why I'm kind of mentioning it. And normally the work carried out in the Software Center is organized into dedicated half-year sprints, and results of these projects that are carried out in the sprints are reported every half a year. And in this case, this sprint, this effort included one of those sprints. I think in total we run over 2 years, almost 3. So the project that this work was carried out was called API Strategies Project, and the focus of the project was, unsurprisingly, APIs as key enablers for innovation. And the logic was that the APIs would, of course, provide mechanisms for different applications to hook up and integrate, generate value for businesses and customers, of course. The starting point with our project was that we were kind of observing increased API usage, and have been kind of observing that for a while now. And it's interesting and important area. So as anyone who is a software specialist or working in the area, they increasingly are finding themselves of implementing different kinds of things related to APIs and API strategies that actually have very strong implications for business decision, and also vice versa. So kind of business is more coming to the fore of making these API related decisions. And we wanted to work with API strategies. So we wanted to have a more thorough look at different kind of strategies that actual companies have, and how they deal with, especially change, but how they deal with a number of different things related to the APIs. How they take into account different kinds of management concerns, and basically how they organize their work around API-related questions. Most of the empirical work is carried out in large industrial software-intensive companies, usually product companies, and with software specialists, and different kinds of architects working with these systems. And we were especially working with people who were kind of managing or in direct control or in direct collaboration with APIs and API strategies. So in what we did in the research project is that we kind of combined one of the earlier frameworks and discussed those frameworks in a workshop mode with the specialists in these organizations. And ultimately, after several years of ongoing work, this resulted in a publication that was accepted for IEEE software and has already kind of published there. So you have the full paper that you can kind of dig deep into. I will a little bit describe the main things that I see in the paper, and how I see what kind of impact it could have for actual companies. So the short summary of what the whole paper is about: it is a theoretical and empirical account drawing on 3 different existing frameworks and putting them together in a new way. At least we believe it's a novel way. And I think it's pretty interesting actually for anybody working with the APIs to kind of, and who has kind of versed in these matters, because even though there is a lot of earlier research work around APIs, there's less theoretical work on how to use existing different kinds of theoretical framings of and to support actual practice and in the industrial context. So it's three different frameworks from the three different places, and we have kind of merging them into one in order to discuss a number of things that have to do with API strategies. So the main starting point is that we take this kind of layered approach, and we are drawing on Juho et al.'s 2010 illustration of 4 different loosely coupled layers. And those layers are 1, business asset, 2, API, 3, app usage, 4, domain. And what we are claiming there is that this loose coupling between these 4 different layers means that there is an independence between the layers, and you can take decisions decoupled from the other layers. We are also saying that these 4 layers have 3 different boundary objects between them. So between the business asset and the API, we have one called API model. Between the API and app usage, we have something called API specification. And between app usage and domain, we have something called use case. So we had for 3 different boundary objects too. And why is it important to have this kind of layered approach, or why is it interesting to have such a layered approach? But first of all, you can use it to account for empirical situations. So you can kind of have a look on how you could implement something like this kind of layered thinking in relation to API strategies that you have in an organization. So the kind of the division between business assets, the API, the app usage, and the domain. So that's one of the ways you can use it. But of course, the interesting way is that it kind of increases a number of questions and concerns on each one of the individual layers. What we do then in the paper is that we combine this kind of layered approach into 2 different approaches. So we first combine it with Elinor Ostrom's favorite work around governance. So the question about governance issues, and this was kind of an empirical finding. So we kind of encountered in several our discussions and workshop over and over again, governance issues related to the APIs are super important. And we draw on Elinor Ostrom's work on common pool resources. And there is a lot of things in that field of literature that I think is interesting in these aspects. One of them has to do with this division of different kinds of goods and activity situations you can kind of use. And we use it for APIs. So we talk about 4 different kinds of APIs, namely from Ostrom's perspective. Those on the other end would be private, on the other end there would be a public goods type of APIs. You would also have different kinds in the middle. So following the Ostrom's logic, those would be called club goods and then common pool resources. And usually the Ostrom's logic is framed into 4. So you have the questions of rivalry, and then you have the questions of openness. So those are the kind of roughly the 2 matrix items. So it's 4 by 4, 2 by 2 matrix. So we approach this, and then we kind of if according to our model, original model with the 4 layers, that the layers are actually loosely coupled, that would mean that you can take the design decisions individually for each one of the layers. Now, if that combined with Ostrom, that would mean that you can take design decisions per individual layer. Meaning, for example, that you could have an open API giving an access to a private asset, or you could have a private API kind of exposing a public asset, and a number of other kinds. So the kind of logic of kind of loosely coupled infrastructure is that you could kind of view the API situations in different kinds of ways. We also draw up on the third framework called the BAPO, so it's by Americas et al. And then the logic is more taken from the development methods logic. So what you would have is that software development concerns should be considered, and usually this BAPO kind of means that the different kinds of concerns you might have might be related to business, architecture, process, and organization, called the BAPO. And this BAPO in our case is used as a sensitivizing device in order to find some of the concerns to discuss about. So that is roughly kind of what we do in the paper. So in addition to that, we provide a little bit of examples, and we draw on kind of our empirical work to give few of those. But that's roughly the kind of approach we suggest. And why is this important, we think, for industry and academia? Well, as I mentioned, for academics and theoretical development, I think there's more room for that in this space. So that's, and this is one way to kind of approach these issues. We are, of course, happy to kind of take any criticism or any kind of comment or any kind of input in terms of what would be interesting in this space to look in more detail. For practitioners, I think there is a real need in the larger organizations to think about this API question strategically. And we offer here one way to do that, and one way to kind of sensitize and draw different kinds of concerns organizations might have and might be facing. And I think based on our input, this has been valuable for those organizations and those professionals working with this systems. So we are kind of happy that it's now published, and hopefully it's beneficial to a number of software engineers and to industries. With that, I want to kind of thank you for the authors. As you might recognize, I'm not really a huge fan of 20-minute talks, so this one will be a little bit shorter than that. But I'm pretty happy to take any questions or concerns or anything else you might have in the session. You can also approach us by email, so that's another way to kind of reach us if you have input, questions, comments, anything like that. With that, I want to thank you for watching the presentation.